Devin Bush getting his fifth-year option declined. I think we all saw that coming. It was like a little over $10 million for his fifth year. $10.9 million for his fifth year. I don't think that was worth it. I will say, though, in looking back, reflecting on what has happened over the last three years, I would not be surprised if the Pittsburgh Steelers never trade up in the NFL draft ever again in Mike Tomlin's career here in the Steel City, because that was the worst move they've made since Jarvis Landry, or not Jarvis Landry, Jarvis Jones, excuse me. That's the worst move they've made since Jarvis Jones. That being said, 2 years removed from an ACL injury, things could change, but I don't think anything's going to change.
So you hope it does, though, right? Like that's kind of the hope. And I thought Vince Williams perfectly said it on Twitter, and like he went through this big thread of going through how when you come back from an ACL injury after the first year, you're not really yourself. Like you're still trying to find your footing, both like physically and mentally, like on the football field. And you have to think, like, hopefully heading into the second year removed from surgery, he's going to get back to his old self. It would benefit the Steelers a lot if he did, but I think the Steelers declining his fifth-year option is one of the smartest moves that they've made in the last year or so. You are not handcuffing yourself to paying Devin Bush, regardless if he has a good year or not. You are not handcuffing yourself to Devin Bush and paying him $10.9 million, which is something at this point, regardless of how good he plays next year, when you look at the overall scope of how he's played from start to finish of his initial tenure in Pittsburgh, he does not deserve that money. He does not deserve that money. And the off-ball linebacker position, slowly but surely in today's game, is becoming less and less important. So and I would argue that he's a little bit more replaceable than the Steelers had initially thought whenever they moved up to number 10 and took him a few years back.
Yeah, I'm getting called out in the chat right now, and I have to acknowledge that I might have made a rash comment on Devin Bush being that bad, because I did. I looked up the Steelers draft history real quick, and you are right. You are all right. Lima Snead, Dree Archer.
Lima Snead, yeah, that was a bad one.
There's lots of them, actually. I mean, Artie Burns, completely forgot about Artie
Burns. Okay, yep, that's it.
There's a lot of bad picks. A lot of bad picks, that have happened over the years. So I do apologize for being that dramatic. Okay, I'll tell them that one back.
So to Stanton's point, I don't think we should be writing Devin Bush off.
No. I think this year could be a big year for Devin Bush. So. I think that. So, and it's the thing is, in his rookie season, he had a great rookie season. Then he gets hurt his second year when he's supposed to have that breakout year. Third year, he comes back. He's off an ACL injury. It's not the fact that Devin Bush can't be good. I think Devin Bush's potential is really, really high still, and he could be a star. And I think that this year is going to prove it, just like it was Terrell Edmonds. They wanted to see where his ceiling is. I think Devin Bush is a guy that could come in here this season and say, hey, my ceiling's much higher than what it looked like last year. That being said, Chad Scott, that's a good one. That being said, it wasn't the fact that he doesn't look like he has a ceiling. Like Terrell Edmonds, when you declined Terrell Edmonds' fifth-year option, you did it because you didn't think he could get any better than how he played currently. With Devin Bush, it's can you get back to the player that you were before the injury? Because Devin Bush last year looked scared to run into a player. He looked very, half-hearted on the field. There were times where it was mental. There was times where he said, if you got bit by a dog, when would be the next time that you would go near a dog? And to me, that said, if you tore your ACL, when would be the last time that you ran into a tackler or to a ball carrier at full speed? I think this year he's got to look at it and just say, man, look, I got to get over the mental blocks. George Pickens said it the other day that a big thing of coming back at the end of the season for Georgia was not because of anything outside of he wanted to prove to himself that he could continue to play and get over the mental hurdles. As somebody who tore their ACL in high school, I know everybody and their mother did. I fully know that it's like when I went to college and started playing in college, I had to get over the fact that I was scared to go through the whole long rehab process again. And I think that those guys face that. Devin Bush's was just a bit dramatic last year. That's got to change. If it does change, Devin Bush is a star. And I don't hold anything back on that.
Yeah, I think he could still be a very, very good inside linebacker. And how this move impacts the Steelers is that if he does have a good year in 2022, then you can kind of sit down at the negotiation table and be like, all right, well, you bounce back pretty well. 10.9 is still a little bit above the asking price, but we'll be more open to bring you back. Whereas opposed to if Devin Bush just continues on his downward trajectory like he has been, you wipe your hands clean, you walk away, and then just go find somebody else.
Yeah, that's the thing is next season you could, if Devin Bush, and that's why they didn't draft anybody this year, because they have Miles Jack, who's also like in that same boat. If he doesn't show that he's a star and he's worth that big paycheck in year 2, then they're going to get rid of him. And with Devin Bush, if he shows that he is worth that big paycheck, Miles Jack's already signed. Devin Bush could get his money next year, and then we can move on. Or they could franchise tag him. They did it with Bud Dupree. It worked out fine. And I think Devin Bush has that same option. Now, I don't know what that number is going to look like. What would that number be? Would it be ridiculous? I don't know what that number would be.
If they're, depending on the tag they would use, you're looking at like either top 5 money at the position or like top 10 money over the last like certain amount of years. It all depends on the tag that you use.
I don't know what the top 10 money is. Like, is it more than $10 million? Like, what's the top 5 inside linebackers making this year? Like, it's got to be like, it might be something ridiculous, and that might be on me for thinking that it's not. But I think that Devin Bush playing on a good season, if he has a good season, like that was the thing with Bud Dupree is he showed like, oh, okay, I could be like good the year before he got franchise tagged.
Bud Dupree's an edge rusher. Like the positional value of an edge rusher is so much more better than an inside linebacker, especially like nowadays too.
So yeah, like them, and I will admit that I don't know that offhand. So if I could be totally wrong in thinking that, but if it's not, I mean, I don't see the issue in that. But again, I don't know. That being said, I think that a lot of people are writing Devin Bush off, and if week 1 rolls around and he's not any better, I'm writing Devin Bush off too. But for right now, I'm gonna feel confident that there's still something left in that tank. He's got all the intangibles when it comes to his physical abilities. Dude's a stud when it comes to being a freak athlete. He just doesn't have the mental capacity right now or the mental breakthrough since his injury to say, hey.
So like top 10 money right now would be like, it'd be a little over $10 million a year.
See, like, I think that he's worth a franchise tag there next year. If he shows like, hey, it works out. If he shows, it's a big if, like it's an if he could show he's worth that. Because at that point you're thinking, okay, like what's the better option here? The cap's going to go up again. You don't really have anybody that you're like, oh my gosh, I got to pay mega bucks to outside of maybe Deontay Johnson, and like a couple of pieces here and there that you're like, I want to retain these guys. I think that next year he could definitely be a cap number for them. But again, that's a big if. That's like Bud Dupree coming into his 4th season. If nobody thought he was going to be good, everybody thought he was going to be gone. Showed, yeah, maybe he could be okay.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Although I do think the trajectory is a little bit different because like slowly but surely Bud Dupree was like rising up, whereas like Devin Bush like hit that insane high in his rookie year. And everybody's like, oh my God, like moving up to number 10 was the greatest move in history. Like, look at the player we got. And then he tears his ACL, and then he's kind of just been not that guy since. And obviously, like, we're only like 1 season removed from him tearing his ACL. And, you hope that he can return to his form. But I don't know, man. It's just like considering the way his short career has panned out already, you would really have to convince me to franchise tag him. Like it would take a lot of consideration of talking. And if they did, obviously the goal is to sign him to a long-term deal. For me to do that with Devin Bush, we're talking like pennies in the first couple years of his contract and backloading it and like finding like potential outs.
But look at it like this. Like what if he, and I agree with that, but what if he comes back this year and he's got 110 tackle season, another 7 tackles for loss, and he shows us, hey, this is Devin Bush who was a rookie and he's back. He just needed a year to get over the mental walls that he built up with the injury. At that point, I think he's worth it.
You sit at the table and you negotiate with him, man. Like I'm not putting the tag on him. Simple as that.
Yeah, I mean, look I can't disagree with you because his play showed it for himself, but I think that Devin Bush has all the upside in a guy that you sign another contract to if he has a good year. That's a
completely agree. I still think the upside is there, and I feel like I'm one of the few people who is still open to the possibility that Devin Bush can have a very good season. But it's just like
Oh, yeah.
moving forward, I'm just not comfortable doing that.
No, yeah, this is a 1 year in advance conversation for a guy who I'm looking at saying maybe could be huge, and everybody else, including myself, is saying
Yeah.
that right now he's trash and had a terrible season. So I understand that I'm looking way too far ahead right now, and that's on me. But
No, but you know what? Like ultimately,
we'll
it's all up to him. Like the year of like adjustment period after like the ACL tear, like I get it. It's super hard mentally to overcome that obstacle. Now, dude, you got paychecks on the line. You have a lot of people to prove wrong, including a lot of people that are going to be cheering you whenever you run out the tunnel every Sunday. You got a lot of people to prove wrong, and like, dude, the difference between you eating steak and lobster every night and the difference between you eating ice soup every night is going to hinge on whether or not you play phenomenally in 2022.
Yeah, I don't think Devin Bush's paycheck will ever be bad enough for his guy to eat ice soup. The dude's already made like $12 million, so good for him. But I could make $12 million last me 10 lifetimes. But that's okay.
Ramen.
Either way,
every night.
It's a long conversation to have, but one that starts now because the Pittsburgh Steelers said, no, we're not sold on a guy that we traded up to number 10 to get only 3 years ago. So